may have heard about biodynamic wines. This sounds like a recent trend, but actually it was developed in the 1920s by a German scientist named Rudolf Steiner. He basically tried to incorporate a more spiritual element into the world of agriculture and taught various courses on what that meant and how to do it. So the goal of Biodynamic is to connect nature with being a more sustainable business. And he looks at the vineyard in a holistic view, combining all the elements into a closed-loop system so that it's more of an ecosystem that's being nurtured through organic principles. So you can kind of think of organic as an umbrella, and within that umbrella, biodynamic as a subset of an organic practice. So with biodynamic, they're merging nature-conscious philosophies with almost the good vibes, mysticism of crystal healers. But what does that actually mean in terms of the practice? So imagine, instead of using any chemicals to spray the vineyard to protect them from pests, a lot of these wineries are actually making their own homeopathic remedies, such as using tea and drying them out and making sprays, so that they can spray the vineyard to prevent pests from eating or taking part of the land that ultimately affects the fruit. There's also, these really crazy and more outlandish practices, which Rudolf Steiner developed himself. One is called Preparation 500, and this is probably the one that you'll hear of the most because it is quite interesting. So wineries will actually stuff cow horns with manure, and they will bury them in the vineyard. And this is to encourage a more energetic ecosystem in the soil, as well as creating more of a biodiversity from the soil that it was from. So you're not only creating homeopathic remedies such as tea sprays, or for example, developing layers of new and fresh fertilizers that is all based on what is available in the vineyard, but trying to create, again, this more holistic ecosystem that is talking to each other, that's feeding off of each other. So that when you have bees pollinating the vineyard from the flowers you have planted between the vines, maybe that orange blossom is being transferred into the end aroma that you're actually smelling in the wine. So in creating this very healthy closed loop system, you're able to taste the actual terroir and where this wine comes from, theoretically, much more than other commercially made or even organically made wines. So focusing on really creating a diverse soil microbiology in order to create a very healthy vineyard, which, as we know, a healthy vineyard means higher quality fruit and a much better wine for you. There's also this incorporation of lunar rhythms into the biodynamic philosophy. And this is an actual lunar rhythm calendar that is all based on the gravitational pull of the moon at the time of day, within the month, within the year. And it guides the winemaker's decisions from everything of planting the vines, to pruning them, to when to harvest, when to rack the wine from one barrel to another, right? So using that gravitational pull. And even when there's certain days that are optimal for drinking biodynamic wines because of that integration of the lunar calendar. So as you'll see in the screen, there's 4 main cycles, and they go fruit, root, flower, and leaf. So there are apps that you can download to tell you what days to drink a biodynamic wine, and generally you want to make sure that you're drinking them in the flower or fruit day. Avoid root or leaf. With biodynamic wines, part of their philosophy is also minimal use of machinery. So a lot of wineries will actually use horses to plow the vineyard or even help with getting the harvest back to the cellar. Again, this philosophy is trying to connect as much of the efforts back to the nature and the ecosystem, so they're not trying to overplow or have too much compact in the soil because it will overall affect the vineyard's health. So trying to incorporate ways to build up the natural immunity of the vineyard is basically the philosophy and the goal here. With those key insights on biodynamic, let's see what you remember.